Awesome. So let me share my screen. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to kind of go through a workflow that we use at Lightsail VR for most of our projects. We were using Mistika VR, a lot of the same way Rachel is using it. And our projects started to become really complex. And we work a lot with agencies and clients where the deadlines are continually getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And we needed to find a way to work faster, more efficiently. And that's what prompted us to move to Mistika Boutique. So today I've got a short demo here that I will kind of walk through how we do stuff. Let me pop open my screen here. This is the boutique interface. Just a couple things to set this up. Working with some Blackmagic 12K nodal footage. So we built a nodal pano rig using the new Blackmagic 12K camera. What I did is I brought that footage into Resolve and I cropped it down to just the parts I wanted and then exported out some frame sequences and brought them into Mistika. Yes, you can bring in B-raw footage right into Mistika and use it. You need a very powerful GPU at this moment in time. So this, for me, works a little bit better. So what we do here, and by the way, Mistika Boutique, I think, is really a lot better if you use it in a two-screen mode. But I'm using it in single screen because it's a little easier for me to share with you all today. So we've got our fisheye footage here. And it's very easy to stitch. Yes, you can work in VR and bring it over here, but I tend to do everything in Boutique now just to save my sanity. So it's as easy as going to Effects, grab a VR stitch. I drag it to make sure both are in there. Let's open up this. And it usually comes in with just a single camera to start with. Now we have two, because I have a front and a back. Let's go ahead and add our second camera. And then what I love so much about this workflow is that integration with PT GUI. Because when doing custom rigs, when doing nodal rigs, you have to go out to stitch. And PT GUI is an app that I'm sure a lot of people on this Zoom call are familiar with. So you just export the image set and it already takes care of putting it into a folder for you where you can hop over to PT GUI, drag them in, do your control points, and save it out. Now, Adrian did a great job already showing that kind of workflow. I've already prepped it here because we're going to be a little short on time. So what I'll do here is I'm just going to import the stitch that I had made. And I believe it's the this first one here, shot one stitch. This is just my PT GUI project file. I'll open that up. And there we go. So I might go over here to my output camera and just change my yaw, so that, we put our character front and center right there. But essentially, I have my stitch all complete here, and all of those same tools that you saw in Mistika VR are available. So if I go to options here, I can go ahead and change my stitch feather. I can turn on optical flow, so on and so forth. Now, I think I got this stitch pretty good. So I don't really think, let's go ahead and just check a couple things. I hit the VR button over here and yeah, I think this is a pretty solid stitch even without optical flow on. And that's because we shot it on a nodal rig and we did a decent job on set. You do have access to improve alignment offsets, alignment angles. You can use your edge points and you can do all your match color. Basically anything you can do in Mistika VR is also available here in Boutique, which makes sense because Boutique has just about everything. So let me just go back here. And I have already done that on all three of these. And what my workflow is I'll stitch this here into the 3 shots, and then I'll hit render. And the way I do that is I select everything and I give it some edit marks. This is just basically quickly telling me my in, my out. I'll head over to the output page. And just like Rachel's workflow, I export a rough stitch before we go to editorial, because we still edit in Premiere, because that's what our editors use. We like it. It's a great workflow. There's a couple things to set you up for success here. First of all, I like to render out, QuickTime Movie, ProRes, LT. Find that works really well in our systems. And what I'll do here is I'll mark this like rough stitch. And here's the secret: split by time code. It's just right here. It splits it into the segments, and that way it'll render this whole block as 1, 2, 3 separate clips, which I've already done to save some time. And that's what they look like. So we can pop in and we can see any of those. Here's the clips. It's looking pretty awesome. All right, let's go back and talk about our next step here. So we have all of our clips rendered out, and now's the time that I pop over to Premiere. Well, I'll input all the clips and I'll edit them together. So let me turn off a couple fun things here. I've popped them all into Premiere, still have my tripod in. These are all just my rough stitches. And I've started to chop up and do my edit. So I can put in some cool things like sound effects and glitch effects and cross dissolves and whatever. This is the creative part where we tell our story. We use all the parts of the shot we're going to use. And the big pain point from using Mistika VR was that my stitcher, Mistika VR, didn't talk to Premiere. But with Mistika Boutique, we now have a timeline. And that was the game changer for our studio. Because we can come to our edit here, where we're going back and forth between a few shots. And I like that. That looks pretty good. I can even pop on a little adjustment layer to do a rough color pass. Oh, this color is just terrible, though. And then we'll go to File, we'll go to Export, Final Cut Pro XML. It'll simplify the project, and we'll pop a XML right here. Now, I already did this last night when I was prepping for today's webinar, so I'm just going to click Cancel. But this essentially is the exact same XML from this sequence. And then what we can do is let's pop back over to Boutique. Let's go to Media and create a new timeline. Sure, we'll save that. Okay, and we're in a new timeline now. And I'll go back into my media, and let's go ahead and find that XML. So let's see, I think it's in Projects, XML. I can just drag and drop this in. Great. So let's conform at 0, 0, because that's where our project starts timecode wise. I'm not going to import the effects, and that's because I'm planning on taking my renders from Mistika Boutique back to Premiere to online them that way. And so, you know, Boutique isn't going to have the same like Boris filters or anything or stuff. I don't have that installed. And then for video tracks, all my video track is on video 1. So I really don't care about the adjustment layers or anything like that. You can, of course, do all of them, but 1 is fine. And we're going to leave this search for media after timeline import. So we'll click Next. And here is the magic sauce. When we rendered out our low resolution proxy files, not only did we get our video file, but we also got something called an RND file, which stands for render, I'm assuming. But this is all the metadata of what that stitch is. So instead of linking to the links, which is the clips, right, the actual video file, I'm going to link instead to the RND. Okay, so I'll hit Perform. Give it a second to find the footage. And we'll go ahead and save this timeline as Vasquez Rocks ready finishing. Okay. Close that up. And look what got brought over. This is phenomenal, right? So what we have here is we have all of our shots right down here ready to be worked on. These are all my transitions, like my cross dissolves, my glitch effects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's brought over absolutely everything for me to start working on. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to get rid of these because I don't care about them at the moment. And I don't care about this black video at the moment. And what I want to do is now get down to work. So I'll select all of this, go to the macros down here, and there's a really cool macro called Trim and Ungroup. We select that. Oh, I must be in the wrong, hold on, I'm in the wrong project. Here, let's open up our timeline here. This is what I've already prepped for you. Here we go. Should go Trim and Ungroup. Oh man, Actually, this is weird because it's taking all the stuff I prepped for everybody and bringing it in. So I'm just going to open up what I did prepare and we'll talk from there. Sorry about that. Finishing. There we go. There we go. So when I brought this all in last night, apologies again, what I ended up when I hit trim and ungroup is you actually just end up with this stack. Like you just have your VR stitch and your shots, and it brings it all over. So now we can start to do our grade and our coloring and all that jazz. So I'm gonna go ahead and just hide my renders. And I wanna talk a little bit now about how we move on from there. So if we have all of the stitch stuff, let's open up here. This is what our stitch looks like. Okay, this is how we ended up with our rough cut. And now it's time to add all the other elements that we need to finish our shot. So rather than go through the painstaking work of doing that, I did this last night so we can just step through and kind of talk about how it's built. So this is over here is what we call, I just call it the stack, right? And the stack contains all the effects. And what I like about the stack is the old workflow was you render something out and then you do your color correction in like After Effects or Premiere, right? And then if you find something wrong, you got to go back to your stitcher, render out a patch or render it out again, and then go back into Premiere. And that workflow is a lot of wasted render time. And when you're working on a quick deadline, you really just don't have that kind of time. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna go to this second shot. Okay, I applied some crazy color grade on this. Just remember, we started here and let's step through what we're doing here, okay? We've got a couple things that are going on. The first is I need to get rid of the tripod down below. Like if I go to my view and we drag down here, you'll see my tripod. I'm gonna turn off my overlays and feathers so that So first step is let's take an effect called VR view. And what VR view does is it just basically moves your camera. It does the 2D projection, right? So that we can like look straight down. And then we'll go into the vector paint tool and just paint that out. Please excuse my very, very poor paint job. Once we have that, we go back to the VR view and we composite it on top of the original, thereby removing the tripod. So I do the same exact thing for this back shadow here. I go to VR view, I point it towards the back shadow, I paint it out with vector paint, and then I'm back to VR view. Now everything's painted out. An easier way to kind of see this is something called node view. So if I go to my node graph here, it kind of puts this out in a really unique way. If you've worked with nodes, either in like Resolve or in like Nuke or Fusion or whatever, this is going to feel really familiar to you because it really, graphically explains the flow of all of your content. You've got your two stitching going in here. Now we have the stitch. That's our VR view. We're pointing straight down. Then we paint it. And then we composite it back on to VR view. And VR view here is what's unwrapping it from the 2D back to the 360 correct. Again, this is a lot easier to see on a 2-monitor setup because you can have on your other monitor all of your tools available. So let's get back into the final bit. Now I'm here, I'm looking at it, it's great. Let's go ahead, let's check it out. Let's do some QC, I notice here, actually here. So if this was at nearest camera, actually that's a pretty good stitch. Uh-oh, wait a second. I do see something over here. Look at this. So right here, a little bit of disparity, kind of what Adrian was talking about. So normally, as I mentioned, I would have to, if I found this late in the process, which I can't tell you how many times that happens. It happens to everybody because you're looking at so much in 360. I would have to go back, re-render, do that whole workflow. But instead, I can simply just drill all the way down here to the stitch. Go ahead to composite mode. Click on optical flow. Well, that's looking a whole lot better. And then I can just go back here and re-render everything with my color grade. This also is really important because sometimes if you're shooting on a camera and it's shooting flat or a log profile or doesn't have your color grade, it's sometimes hard to tell what's working because it's more difficult to see. So I love having this flexibility. Similarly, you know, if I look down here at the paint job and I see anything that's kind of a miss, like, oh, I missed a chord right there, I could also go into the vector paint, patch it up, so on and so forth. Not going to go through that right now, but just so you know, it's definitely an option. And then I haven't even really spoken about the beautiful color grade features. Mistika Boutique has all this color grading capability. So just like Resolve or even Lumetri in Premiere, but I feel like it does a much better job at doing the color work. Because in Resolve, remember, Resolve is not going to understand this seam line back here. It's not going to allow you to make shapes that traverse that. So what's great here is I can go to my color grade, which I'm currently in. Let's get out of the VR view mode here. And if I wanted to make a shape just on this rock, I could probably do that by going here to layer, add a layer, and we'll go ahead and create a shape. And the key mode here is I change my shape from planar to lat long. And now I should be able to create a shape. So let's go ahead and just like do a really bad job. And you see, I can even go all the way around and it automatically detects and knows that that's a seam line. This is huge. This is the reason you want to use this program to do any sort of professional work in color grading. Let's go ahead and just feather that up. And now we'll turn off our shape tool and do some really ridiculous color grading. Like let's make this rock like really dark. You know, I'm not a colorist. And if you are a colorist and you know how to use Boutique, please talk to me because I can offer you probably a job. So love this, love how we're, you know, just tweaking things and working in a lat long space. And I think that that's really, really powerful tools. Let's say we love it, the client loves it, we're all good and happy. The final step here is to render everything back out. So I've already done that. Here's all the final renders, and then we bring them back into Premiere. So I take these rendered files, go back into Premiere. I usually put them in an online folder, and then I'll duplicate my sequence here and just replace all of the shots. So then I've got my final footage with the tripod all removed, all my effects in there, and everything all in Premiere, ready for final output, titles, last minute client tweaks, with a pretty simple and effective workflow. I'm checking my notes to see if I forget anything, but I think that's about it. It's a really great way to work. It's great to have the flexibility. It's great to have the EDL and timeline features. And it's great to, it's just been really a big boon to our process. So that is my presentation.